let's talk about the elections, and let's talk about the debate. I'm going to ask you a question, and you go ahead and give me your opinion, and I'll give you mine, and they may agree, may disagree, and so be it. So, talking first about the big question, of course, is who do you think won the debate?
Well, I tried to say not what I think. I thought it was a pretty neutral thing, with Trump being a little bit more aggressive and probably holding his own. He didn't lose anything. I'm not sure how much he gained, and I can just tell you, I went online. If you just pull up presidential debate results on Google, you will see about 10 different entries from major stations like CNN to a cross-section of pollsters, and the consensus is that Clinton held her own and probably helped herself by 3 or 4 points. That's the average. Some are higher, some are lower. Trump really got after her and certainly fired up his base. Yeah. But in terms of numbers, the polls didn't show any change. If you were for Trump after the first debate, you're still for Trump the second debate, and it didn't change. That's reflected in virtually every poll I've looked at, Steve. I also looked at a poll out of the University of Missouri that went to about 15 different colleges and put focus groups of college kids together, large numbers, sampled about 1,000 college kids, if I remember correctly. And again, Trump held his own. About 32% there said they were for Trump before and after, but Clinton picked up 3 or 4 points. So now the problem is, it's hard at this stage to attribute the negative of what happened with the bus fiasco involving Trump last week. There's no doubt about the fact that it certainly didn't help his situation. And so somebody told me he was run over by a Hollywood bus. Well,
that's a good one. That's a good one. I like that one.
The drop in his numbers might be attributed to what happened Friday and Saturday, and the debate was kind of a standoff. Or maybe he came back a couple of points, quite frankly. So that throws kind of a ringer into the whole matter. The fact remains that a combination of the bus fiasco and Trump at the debate, it looks to me like Trump held his own at the debate. Clinton got a bump either from the bus, or I think she just about bottomed out in the debate. She was not as aggressive. She stood her ground, but obviously Trump, when you're calling your opponent somebody that ought to go to jail, that's what they holler in third world dictator countries. And so that was pretty rough. His base just loved it, Steve. He just loved it. But I think that, we got to realize, we got to be practical out here. We in Louisiana are relevant to this whole debate, as is most of the rest of the country. This all comes down to what a middle class, primarily female voter in 4 or 5 key states like Pennsylvania, Ohio, possibly Florida, Nevada, North Carolina, in 4 or 5 states, how they're affected. Were they completely turned off from Trump because of the allegations of the womanizing? Some are and some aren't. And so that's where this whole election comes from. So as a consequence, that's where the focus is. And it looks like if Trump did improve his standing, and he probably did a little bit, he came on strong. Obviously, he prepared this time around. But when all is said and done, Clinton still holds her own. And the best, I'll tell you what, I've learned in politics in my life, and in looking at how the Saints are going to do on Sunday, and looking at my favorite horse down at the fairgrounds down in New Orleans, that you look pretty close to what those betting parlors say. These guys do this for a living, particularly if they take the big bets. There is a group called that is out of Ireland called Paddy Power Sports Bet. That's Paddy Power Sports Bet. You can check it out. And what they're saying is, of this morning, their numbers show that they give Clinton a 2-9 lead. What that means is, you bet $100 on Hillary Clinton, and to win $100 on Hillary Clinton, you've got to put up $450. That's a huge margin, Steve. Yeah. If you want to bet on Trump, if you put $100 on Trump, just $100, you can bet $350 you can win. But the $100 on Clinton, that's all you're going to win if you put $450. So, it just shows you the numbers that the bettors around the world, looking at this last night and looking at everything. And Patty, you could bet up to $500,000 on some of these races. Well, nobody throws that kind of money away. So the practical focus right now is that Hillary Clinton has held her own. She's up by 4 points probably on an average, and the money is still on her despite all the rhetoric and the attacks by Donald Trump last night.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's a really good summary, I got to tell you. When I was watching the debate, well, first of all, I will tell you, and as I've said before, I'm not a Donald Trump supporter. Of all the candidates who are currently running, I think he would be absolutely the worst. I agree with all of the major publications who have come out there and endorsed. Those particularly who have said that he is the worst candidate ever, and the reason why I say that is because he is so volatile. I cannot imagine him in any respect. Cannot imagine him in the area of foreign policy. I think that he would destroy this country, destroy the world, just out of his own personality, his own anger. So having said that, there's no doubt a bias that I have against his being president, his winning. I think that I was really annoyed, quite frankly, when he did that little stunt before the debate. I thought that was really low class. Here he's having this. Look, I have no problem with him doing that. If he wants to do it, that's fine. If he wants to do it separate from the debate, that's fine. But this is so close to the debate. And the other thing is that really what he was doing is he was having this Hamlet debate within himself. Should I not? What should I do? And what does he do on that Sunday after everybody tells him, don't do it, he does it, and he puts up on Twitter all these videos about Hillary, and then he launches this surprise attack, brings these women in, and then puts them on, as I understand, the front row. That is, I got to tell you, that's circus time. That is political circus time. He is Barnum Bailey, and he deserves to be in a circus. There's a time and a place for everything, and that is not the time and place for this type. We're looking at trying to talk about what is positive about the country, where we need to go, and also what's negative about the candidates. And I just think that just took everything away from any presence that he had, particularly because, and this is the emphasis, particularly because he did it in response to his being outed, not by the Clintons, but by the news media, showing what he did 11 years ago that was in contra opposite from what AP had pointed out that he had done last Monday that his campaign denied. And then all of a sudden it comes out on Friday that basically what he did was exactly what, or virtually exactly, I should say, what AP was reporting. Look, if you're gonna apologize, and his apology was horrible. So if he's gonna apologize, show that you have some remorse, but don't link your remorse with trying to lift yourself up by putting somebody else down within the context of the debate. So, he did great for his group. He is just proving to everybody, I believe, that he is a loser. And he's going to lose his presidential race, and the people supporting him are going to blame others, but they have nobody else to blame but themselves and Donald Trump. Anyway, go ahead.
I just have to assume this, that he is getting so much support from his supporters that are just incredulous and have this deep hatred for Hillary Clinton, number one, that he feels like to muddy her up, to put away this terrible bus conversation, that he's trying to bring her down the mud with him, and therefore people will kind of put that aside and then go back to, let's make America great again, and saying she's the old, she's part of the old establishment, she's part of the problem, not the solution, and therefore, but the chink in his armor was the terrible attacks because of the women's situation. So I think he felt like, let's bring her down. I don't think that's a good scenario, by the way, but that I think is where his thinking's come around. I don't think a lot of us realize the deep hatred. You bring up, why are you for Donald Trump? In some very reasonable, well-educated people that I've talked to, both in my home state of Louisiana, sure, throughout the country, and within 5 seconds, well, you can't stand that, Clinton. In other words, they won't answer your question about Trump. Trump is this alternative they don't even want to acknowledge has problems because they're so down on Hillary Clinton. So he's had this advantage all along. If it were one of 20 other candidates, they'd probably be ahead by 15, 20 points right now over Donald Trump. But right. So, and we've talked about this before, it's not that they like Donald Trump, the hatred for Clinton is so very, very high. And so you put all that in the blend, and that's why he's still got a little life to him. I mean, all the things he's done, he shouldn't have any life. Now, I'll say this, even though I think Clinton won the debate, and I don't know what it means by winning, you get a few extra points. I don't know if it really changed any votes. But he focused a little better, hit her on the emails, for example, a little harder, came it down on her on a number of things, and I'm not even went too far in saying I'm going to try to make a criminal out of you, but he was better focused this time on some attacks on her. She kind of stumbled on that Abe Lincoln commentary about, she related herself to Abe Lincoln, and you said you started laughing about it. Pretty good point in terms of debate.
Absolutely.
So wash all that out. Not much ground was gained. I think whatever ground she gained happened on Friday and Saturday. It was kind of a washout. She got a little bump on Friday and Saturday, and there's 29 days to go. And that 29 days to go, what can Trump do to pull the rug out from under her, quite frankly? If I can just say one more thing, and the other thing that I think has been a great shot for Clinton, because I think this race is still very close, the demise, the destruction of the third-party candidate, Gary Johnson. You see, he was the alternative for a number of people. Say, I can't stand any candidate. I don't want Trump. I don't want Clinton. Yeah, that Gary Johnson's pretty good fellow. He's climbed Mount Everest and runs triathlons, 2-term governor of New Mexico. But he is self-destructed by some off-the-wall things he said, what he does not know. And people, oh my gosh, if he'd have held his own, this race would be right neck and neck. I think the fact that people are saying, well, I don't think I can take Johnson. Trump's just off the wall, so I'll reluctantly hold my nose and support Hillary Clinton. That's giving her that little bump right there. And so with 29 days to go, what do you do? One more debate will be critical, and Trump is hoping she will continue to stumble in some way, and Clinton is hoping for more expose on some of the tapes and other things that can come forward. But far from seeing the direction, it's held with Clinton slightly. That's where the money is. But as we've seen before, this can be very volatile in the next 29 days.
No question about it. I mean, I certainly, again, I do believe Trump's going to lose. I think that he is a loser in terms of the way he's handled this. But I likewise agree that, I certainly would not place a bet on Hillary Clinton at this point in time, although, she is the favorite. So in terms, when I was watching the debate, I'm thinking to myself, okay, well, who's winning? And I kept on, I was thinking rope-a-dope, because why is it that Hillary Clinton did such a good job in basically tearing Trump up? Yeah, he didn't pivot. I understand that last time, but is it that maybe she learned something from the vice president debate? Because if you look at it, at least in my opinion, the Democrat won the vice president debate in terms of points. He's lost it in terms of his say mannerisms of his interrupting. But in terms of content, he was without doubt a major winner. Yet everybody said that Trump's guy won. And so I'm thinking, well, if that's the case, then maybe what Hillary needs to do is to go soft and not come out there with gloves. I mean, make a point, in the beginning and when it's appropriate, but then try to explain what she wants to do for those people who are undecided, and therefore play rope the dope, because this guy's going to go crazy. He's going to rev up, and he's going to wind up, and he's going to just do something that just doesn't make any sense, doesn't look presidential. And it happened when he brought up, like you point out, when he brought up that issue about putting her in jail. I mean, that tells you this guy is not qualified. Okay, I mean, we don't need another President Nixon. Already people think that he's a fascist, and to do the kind of thing that, like you point out, that third world countries do, it just doesn't make any sense. So I just wonder whether or not she did play rope-a-dope. By the way, we have about 6 minutes left according to my browser. Go ahead, please.
Well, I see your point, and it's a tough decision. Does she play, just the attacked leader that's trying to stay above the fray? A lot of people think, well, you got to stand up to that guy. You've got to call out all his warts. And on the other hand, I guess in favor of that approach, Steve, is that calling out his warts don't seem to make a lot of difference to his supporters. There are 40% of the people in this country that despise what's going on in Washington, D.C., that feel left out because of their own personal situation. I had a very reasonable voter who I just assumed was for Trump. He says, well, I looked at her tax plan on inheritance, and she's going to start making me paying all these taxes. And, and I don't not real crazy about Trump, but I don't go paying all those huge new taxes she's talking about. And that was a major factor in his decision. Again, that's anti-Hillary. It's not Donald Trump doesn't offer you much at all. Make America great again. You get into his nuances. There's no meat. Where's the beef? And normally that plays so well. It played so well in past elections. Ronald Reagan, there you go again, which Hillary tried last night. Walter Mondale, where's the beef? But in this election, the figures are so polarizing, and Trump made pretty good points. She's been there for 30 years, and why haven't you done something about the tax code? Well, she just was one of 100 senators, and she's one by herself. But to the average person, you're part of the problem. You've been there, and when he, by the way, when he said 30 years, he says it's been more than 30 years.
Yeah, she did say that. I was kind of surprised, but I think that her emphasis is, look, I mean, I've been in government, and these are the things that I've done. I mean, obviously that's the point that she was making. And I think that she actually explained, well, the president does have veto power. And as you say, I mean, it just shows how imbecilic some of these points are, at least from my standpoint. So I guess my last question to you is, if you're Donald Trump now, and there may be some tapes out there, and you're Hillary Clinton, and that there's emails out there from the Russians, maybe by way of Donald Trump, who knows? How do you deal with this? I mean, do you make any changes? Take both. We have about 3 minutes left.
Yeah, just real quick. Number one, I'd get focused. I'd get him, if you could, I would do everything I could to tell him, look, you get yourself about 4 talking points, and don't get off those talking points. You go all over the place. You don't remind us of a president because you're so incoherent. Get 4 key points and stay on those points and hammer them home. 2 to get America great again, and 2 against Hillary Clinton, and do that and focus nothing else along that line. That's one thing I would tell him.
Right.
He kind of stalked her too last night.
Oh, God.
And she was relating to the questionnaires pretty well. He didn't do that. But he's stalking her. He's walking right behind her. I don't know if he meant to do that or not, but he looked like a stalker playing up this image of how he treats women.
I actually screamed out at the TV, and my wife was to my left, sitting down, and I said, get away from her. I mean, what the hell are you doing? And she says, my wife looked at me, but I mean, I caught that before they mentioned. I'm just, oh my God, especially when you look at what happened, with Al Gore, what happened with her before when she ran for U.S. Senate, and of course, George Bush and the watch.
And that just goes against the grain. You see, the president stands behind the podium and I'm going to solve your problems, looking bigger than life. And he doesn't do that when he scowls and he moves across the stage. And so it's a question of focus for him at this stage, and a very simple message. She's the part of the problem. I'm the solution. I'm going to make America great again. Don't get into too many specifics, but I don't know if you can hold his feet to the fire along that line with 29 days to go. We've got one more debate, and that's going to be critical. They've got the best minds in supposedly up there, haven't been very successful so far trying to focus on this debate. But the next one is in Las Vegas on October the 19th. So we've got 9 more days to the last definitive debate, and that'll be the end of the line for him if he can't turn it around.
One last question. We have a minute left, so take about 30 seconds, and that is, do you think he has actually stopped the hemorrhaging?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so at all. The overflow in terms of that woman issue is going to be a focus of so many television spots that we'll see in the next week or two, and they're going to try to hit that home. On the other hand, life in politics on these issues is a 3 or 4 day event. So I'll be interested to see polls in 3 or 4 days to see if the whole flow continues. But you're going to see that bus on TV spot after TV spots, Steve. And so it's going to be fascinating to watch it. And, one final thing. It's going to be fascinating to watch. And we live in the state where we've got the most crazy off-the-wall candidates. We've got the Edwin Edwards, David Dukes, Earl Long, Huey Long. And when we get to kind of stunned about it all and get surprised, it's pretty rough up there in Washington, D.C.
Absolutely. Jim, thank you so much.